No, he wanted to make a napalm.
A Sharknado.
Yeah, Sharknado or napalm.
Yeah. So it starts off a few years before the main part of the story takes place with Kate and her friends going to try to, as she says, tame a tornado.
The cowboy scientist.
He's a cowboy scientist.
Exactly.
The best kind.
Does it get more American than being a cowboy scientist? I think that's kind of awesome.
It gives you a little window into the whole niche, I guess you could say, group of folks that are the storm chasers, the storm chasing community.
Hello, and welcome to the Pop Culture Contrarian with Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
This week, we went and saw Twisters, the sequel/remake of the 1996 Twister. So let's start off. Did we enjoy this movie? I did. I thought it was pretty good.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
I thought that, I guess my first impression, I would just say it was a solid Americana box office, like a blockbuster kind of movie.
Yeah, it's the kind of movie I wouldn't feel bad about telling anyone, yeah, you can take your family to go see that. I mean, not very little kids, but like a teenager, sure. There's nothing to worry about here, like at all. I always love it when I can say that about a movie. Like, this is a fun movie that adults will enjoy, but there's not like adult content or bad language. There's some bad language, I guess, but I didn't notice tons.
It was relatively mild.
Yeah.
What'd you think, Thomas?
You know, it was a fun movie. It was a fun kind of summer time movie.
And that's
Popcorn
exactly
flick.
what it is. I mean, this is not what you go and see if, you know, it's not a film snob. It's not super deep. It's not like really thought-provoking or remarkable. But it's just fun. Right.
It's fun to watch. It's, you know, what happens if you have a bunch of people chasing tornadoes in big trucks?
Yeah.
We have touchdown. Tornado is on the ground.
Before you turn off this podcast, go and subscribe, turn on the bell notification if you're on YouTube, if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of the other places that you're listening. Be sure to follow us, leave us a review. It really helps with spreading the podcast.
Yes, please do. That would be great. And leave us thoughts on this episode, what you think. Did you like the movie? Are you going to go see it? All that stuff. We'd love to hear from you. All right. Well, going back to the movie. So I'll briefly synopsize it. It kind of starts with this girl, Kate, and her tornado crew, because there's all these different tornado chasing teams in the movie. So it starts off a few years before the main part of the story takes place with Kate and her friends going to try to, as she says, tame a tornado.
What do you say we tame this Bronco, huh?
Absorbent polymer that they use in diapers to try to suck the moisture out of the air, and somehow that's going to make the tornado stop.
How? We put her up inside a tornado.
Polycrylate.
That's what we think they said. We can't remember exactly, and we don't have the script, unfortunately.
That's what Slate.com said.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, there we go. If you can't trust Slate, who can you trust?
Right.
Anyhow, so they try that. Of course, because this is set 5 years before the main movie takes place, everything goes wrong. The tornado is an E5 instead of an E1, which means it's, you know, as powerful as they come instead of as weak as they come. And most of her team ends up getting killed, except for her, Kate, the main character, and this one guy named Javi. And so then you cut to modern day, and she's living in New York City working for, I guess, NOAA or somebody?
Probably, or the Weather Channel or something along those lines.
And so she's still doing what she's good at, which they show you really quickly. She's the person who she can watch the clouds and the wind and be like, there's going to be a tornado there, and it's going to go that way.
Yeah, she's like an expert prodigy analyst.
Right, yeah. At tornadoes specifically. Mm-hmm. And that's been her interest her whole life, as we're told. So anyhow, her friend Javi comes back and explains that he's still chasing tornadoes, or is back chasing tornadoes, I guess. And he wants her to come help. And she says, I'll give you a week. And then it's a bunch of tornado chasing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You meet this guy named Tyler, who's kind of a YouTube tornado chaser, got like 1 million subscribers, and he's having fun while he's doing it. Whereas Kate and Javi and their team are all the scientist PhDs guys.
I am a scientist!
Doing, you know, the real science. And Tyler's just kind of having fun doing stupid, good old boy chasing tornadoes.
Although he is a scientist too.
He is, we learn later.
Yes.
The cowboy scientist.
He's a cowboy scientist.
Exactly.
The best kind.
Does it get more American than being a cowboy scientist? I think that's kind of awesome.
Right.
And like the first thing you see him do is he has this truck, which we did some research. It seems like this kind of truck that can survive a tornado is somewhat realistic, at least. He drives into the tornado and then launches a bunch of fireworks in the tornado. It's a pretty cool visual.
Yeah.
Yeah, all for his YouTube channel. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, his YouTube channel. Seemed to be probably like a Dodge 2500. And
yeah,
you were, Thomas, you were mentioning.
Yeah. So I remember seeing the first movie in 96 in the theater. And this movie it's not a remake. But it's not like you said, it's not quite a sequel either.
It's somewhere in between those two.
Yeah. But it definitely doesn't hide the fact that it is connected to that first movie. Yeah. And in one way it does it is through the main character's trucks.
Yeah.
And Dodge or Ram, I guess now, obviously must have been a major sponsor of the original movie, and they're back here.
Yeah, apparently there was a fight with Ford to get either the Dodge 95 truck in there in the first movie or the Ford 97 truck, and Dodge won.
Yeah. Well, Dodge's 95 looked a lot better than the Ford 95, I'll tell you that.
Well, it was the Ford 97 apparently.
The Ford 97, okay. Yeah. Anyway, that was kind of a little bit of an Easter egg or a connection, because you see both the two main teams in the original. The main characters were driving these Dodge Rams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And same thing here in the second movie.
Yeah. And Kate's friend Javi also has a brand new Dodge.
Yeah, the Dodge TRX. And then you had the...
Whereas Tyler's got the older Dodge 2500. It's like it's probably got a Cummins diesel in it. It looked to be like a early 2000s model probably.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to insert... Tyler is played by Glen Powell, who's kind of blowing up into movie stardom these days.
Yeah, he was in Maverick.
Yeah, he was Hangman in Maverick, who gets the final kill of that movie, I guess. And he's been in some other stuff, some big Netflix movies recently.
Yeah, he's rising.
I think he's actually, isn't he a Texan? I think he's from Austin.
He's definitely from, I guess, kind of flyover America, based on some interviews I've seen from him.
I think he went to school in Austin.
Yeah. See.
He might be but I think he's a Texan.
His character, I'll see if I can find
his character in the movie, he's from Arkansas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's the tornado wrangler? Is that how?
Yeah, tornado wrangler is what he says, and he's got this tagline that he always says, which is, "If you feel it, chase it."
Yeah.
And he's getting people to do that as a call and response. Doesn't quite make sense, but I guess the whole point is you get something you say and people recognize, and then they can say it back to you.
You know, and I was watching the whole YouTube channel thing that they have, Tyler's got, and it's pretty cool, pretty sophisticated setup that his team's running.
Yeah.
And they reference having 1 million subscribers. And I was thinking about what YouTube would have, like what you'd have to do to have a successful team like that. And I imagine, because they're like selling t-shirts and stuff to actually help victims in damaged areas.
Yeah, and this is stuff you kind of find out, because at first you're kind of supposed to see Tyler as the bad guy and Kate and Javi as the good guys.
Yeah.
And it's more complicated than that, as the movie shows you. I won't spoil the end of the movie, but we've told you how you get there.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. But I found it interesting that, the parallels between, because there are really YouTubers who go out and do this kind of stuff. And it immediately made me think of one guy's name's Ryan Hall, y'all. Now, he's not actually a storm chaser, but I guess he might be more along the lines of what Kate represents. He's sort of an expert analyst. And especially when storms have come through our area in recent months, I tuned in to Ryan Hall, y'all. He's got like 2 million subscribers.
Yeah. Yep.
And he was ahead of all the local channels. Like I had him side
where
by
the
side.
tornadoes were.
Yeah, on where exactly. And I had him side by side. I was watching local news and national news, and then Ryan Hall, y'all, and he's beating everybody. So
I'll probably have to follow that next time there's some storms in our area.
I recommend it. And yeah, it was just interesting to see this whole, I guess, grassroots journalist or analyst or the guy that's not backed up by corporations being better.
Right. That's one of the things I really appreciated too about Tyler in the movie. And by the way, Glen Powell is from Texas, Austin. It's this guy who, as we find out, he does have a PhD in meteorology, or he studied it anyhow. But he's just this guy who's kind of on his own doing the American thing of like, I've got an idea, let's pursue it. And he's seeing success, that's the American dream. That's what we want to see happen. So I was happy to see that, and I thought it was fun.
Yeah,
to have that guy who's just seemingly just having fun chasing tornadoes, because it's the best thrill there is, I guess.
Yeah. And then also helping people in the damaged towns,
handing out food for free and stuff, and helping people find their lost dogs after the storms pass through. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What I appreciated about the movie, one of the factors is they did the same thing in the first movie. They filmed the whole thing in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So you don't, there's something to be said about movies that are filmed actually on location where they're supposed to represent rather than in a film, a studio somewhere.
Or in just one of those standard places like Civil War, which we talked about earlier this year.
Yeah, filmed
where
in
it's
Georgia.
supposed to be New York City in the first scene, and we were all like, "That's Atlanta."
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, so it just you can't replicate the environment, the real environment in the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
Still, even with CGI and everything, you just can't do it the way I think you can when you actually have the camera on location, making those big open shots, and you do get the sense of the big openness of Oklahoma.
Yeah. And it's something, if you've never been out to Oklahoma or Kansas or somewhere similar, it's kind of hard to understand. There's just more sky.
I said how beautiful the sky was.
It's much more sky. It's crazy.
So yeah. So I appreciate that aspect of it. It was, like I said, it was kind of a fun film. It was just kind of an adventure film. And it gives you a little window into the whole niche, I guess you could say, group of folks that are the storm chasers, the storm chasing community who study these things in real life. I think the inspiration for the first film was tied to that. I think it was either University of Oklahoma or some students who were the kind of
like the pioneers, maybe
the template for these storm chaser groups. So the way they kind of show them as this kind of like ragtag bunch of, young
kids,
folks, students going out and testing different theories and stuff and trying to understand the storms and the tornadoes. Evidently that was pretty true to life. So that was kind of interesting little window into that world.
And it's worth noting that they kind of, at the opening scene of the movie, you have the Dorothy, which is the big kind of MacGuffin from the first movie.
Yeah.
And it's being used by Javi to gather data on what the tornado's doing. And it's just like the whole thing in the first movie is getting Dot up in the air.
Yeah.
And in this movie, it's just like, we're way past that. This is some random college students doing the same thing. Not just because, but it shows meteorology really has advanced an awful lot in the time between these movies. And we actually, our weather apps are way more accurate now than they ever used to be. And that's something they talk about in the movie that, at one point they're saying there's a tornado going to be over there. And they're like, yeah, you and everyone with a $10 weather app knows that.
Yeah.
Well, I think in this movie too, the focus of, you could say the first movie is just trying to understand how these form better. And that's why, the MacGuffin, or Dot. This movie, it's like, well, we can't just do that again, although that's an element here. It's more like we want to figure out if we can actually stop them.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the big question.
Which is a cool idea. It's kind of, I did immediately think when I heard they're trying to stop the tornado or tame the tornado, I was like, okay, it's man playing God again.
Yeah.
Are we going to see some kind of repercussion about that? That's not the way the movie takes it. It is, of course, it would be incredible for all sorts of towns all over the country if you could drive a truck into a tornado, launch a bunch of absorbent polymer, and then stop the tornado before it tears through town and destroys everyone's homes. That would be amazing. I don't know if it's any kind of realistic. I read one article that seems to say not so much.
Yeah, I tend to probably lean that way on this. I think it seems like it's a theory that's been posited, but the practical aspect of actually engaging such a theory to see if it would actually work. I mean, and they kind of show that in the movie where there's like, oh, well, that didn't work this time. Why didn't it work? And they discover supposedly why it didn't.
Yeah, their model was wrong. There was too much moisture or something.
Right.
They should just use napalm
I
like
felt,
they wanted to in the 60s.
So yeah, that's
Yeah,
I was reading this Time article, and apparently in 61, an engineer sent a letter to the National Severe Storms Project proposing an unmanned aircraft launch napalm
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
into our tornado to cut it off.
Yes.
Which
I love that idea.
I wonder
that's like nuking a hurricane, right? That's just like, okay. I don't know where you're coming from. Sounds like maybe you just want to blow up some napalm.
Yep.
I don't understand how he thought that would actually stop the hurricane.
Increasing the temperature somehow.
No, he wanted to make a tornapalm.
A Sharknado.
Yeah, Sharknado. Tornapalm.
Yeah. Goodness gracious. That's, I guess showing that Americans have these crazy ideas sometimes. And speaking of America, this is something I didn't really know beforehand. You might could guess it, but I saw this data set showing the countries in the world with the most tornadoes.
Yeah.
And as you might guess, the country that sees the most tornadoes is in fact America.
By a lot.
By a lot.
Yeah.
America sees about 1,200 a year. Canada is number 2, sees about 100 a year.
Yeah.
All of Europe, including waterspouts in the Mediterranean, sees about 700 a year. So we see a lot of tornadoes here.
Yeah, well, it's all topography.
Yeah.
I mean, topography and location on the planet.
The jet streams and the planes, yeah.
There's so many.
All makes kind of a perfect storm.
Yeah.
It's not because of freedom. Tornadoes are free.
Right. Yeah. No. That's just what I think whenever I see a tornado is freedom.
I mean, that's what Tyler thought.
It is what Tyler thought.
Yeah.
I might feel different if I saw a tornado where someone was shooting fireworks up into it. I might feel different.
Yes.
Have you actually ever personally seen a tornado funnel cloud touching ground?
No, not touching the ground. I've seen a rotating cloud at one point in April. There was some really big tornadoes 15 years ago or something that swept through this area in April that year. And I saw a rotating cloud, but it wasn't touching the ground.
Okay. How about you?
Yeah, same. I've never seen one actually touch down, but I have seen the funnel cloud Sterling described.
I've never either, but except in my nightmare.
I'm scared.
I feel like that.
Yeah.
Of all the nightmares,
a lot of those. Yeah.
The tornado nightmare, for whatever, is probably the one I experienced the most.
I had that a lot when I was a kid.
And it's weird because I'll just it's one of those things where either I'm looking out the window and suddenly I'm seeing that funnel cloud come, or I just open the door
and it's
outside
just right
the
there.
house and it's like right there, bearing down. I don't know. When I was young, we were living in Birmingham and tornadoes came through Birmingham. And I remember we had to run down into our basement and been there, and it didn't come anywhere near our house. But I just remember, I think that probably really impacted me, the fear of just how powerful these things are and just how seemingly unpredictable. You know they're around, but you don't know if they're going to get you, kind of thing. That fear they tried to have it in this movie.
You get it at moments.
It's not like the first movie did a better job of giving you that real sense of foreboding when the storm was coming. This one, it was like they were like, I mean, even the scenes where like driving into the tornadoes and stuff like that was a little bit, to me, that was just not believable.
That's true. The audience, I don't think, feels the fear of the tornado nearly as much. Although maybe you're supposed to. There is a scene where a tornado rips apart a movie theater. And so maybe we were supposed to be like, oh no. And I will say the weather when I went into the movie theater was dark and cloudy, not quite thundering, but pretty close.
Foreboding.
And then when I left, it was the same. And I was like, it's just like right in line with the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't really feel the fear. You do feel Kate's fear.
Yeah.
Because she loses all her friends in the beginning of the movie. And then when she first is faced with tornadoes again, she's
got some PTSD.
Right. And you feel that. But you don't really feel like, oh, this tornado is dangerous and it's going to kill people.
Well, that was the thing that I found a little bit, I don't know what the right word to use is. Disingenuous is probably not the right word, but that's what I'm going to use. At the start of the film, you have they're young film storm chasers, and she's got this theory, and they're going to put it in effect, and they see the tornado, and they're like, hey, we're going to do this. And then, of course, the tornado ends up being more powerful. This is the one that ends up killing all of her friends. And there's this sense in which either it's just the ignorance of the real power of what these things are, which could cut somebody off guard and really impact them, which is maybe what they're trying to communicate. But I felt like there was too much of this kind of like invincibility kind of attitude amongst some of the characters that are like chasing after these storms. And the one character that seemingly was not, that they kind of made into a goofball, was the British reporter. But if you think about it, that guy was recognizing the real danger of the storms.
Yeah. So there's this British reporter following Tyler around, and Tyler and his buddies are giving him a super hard time, purposely trying to scare him. And he's, of course, scared because he's driving into tornadoes. But yeah, I agree. You don't feel the fear. You don't feel the foreboding. I don't know that that's a terrible thing for the movie to take that tone of, it doesn't downplay the devastation. It shows the devastation. It shows how tough it is to rebuild. But the actual tornadoes itself, it kind of treats as more of exciting thing rather than a dreadful thing.
Yeah, it's the difference between a house cat and a bobcat. And what I mean by that is a house cat can scratch you, it can bite you, it can make it uncomfortable for you, but you're not really as scared of a house cat. A bobcat, or let's just go all the way, a mountain lion, can kill you.
Right.
And so there's a difference in fear factor there. And I felt like the first one was more dealing with tornadoes, like these are like mountain lions. This one was like, it showed you people getting killed by it.
Yeah.
But it didn't quite grab that fear factor of it. And maybe was because it seemed like if they just did things this way or this way, they could ensure that they weren't going to be killed by it. And I'm like,
I think that's partially because the characters we follow are there's pros at tornadoes.
Yeah.
So they know, oh, this is bad. The weather's turning. That probably means a tornado's coming. We need to go hide. Where can we hide? They find a, swimming pool at one point, hide in that. That's maybe the scariest tornado in the movie is when they're hiding in the swimming pool.
Well, that whole scene, to their credit, that whole scene was the one that I felt was actually the scariest. Mm-hmm. Because they're the most unprepared at that point. They're the most unprepared. They realize that they're in a situation that there's almost like, where did they find cover from this thing? Right. So that one felt that scene was more, I think, along the lines of the fear factor was heightened.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's it's a fun movie. It's not supposed to be super serious, obviously.
Right.
But
although the trailers didn't know that. The trailers were all for horror movies, which was kind of off-putting. But anyhow, that swimming pool scene, one thing I really appreciated just because it was informative to me, is there's this scene where the two tornado chasers who are there are guiding these civilians about what to do in the tornado, how to be safe, go in the swimming pool, blah, blah, blah. And there's this guy who kind of gets trapped a little bit farther away from safety. And so Tyler's crawling out, fully belly crawling, not putting any gap between his body and the ground to try to help pull this guy to safety. And the other guy's doing it, and then he gets a little cocky, and he kind of goes up on all fours, and immediately that allows the air to catch him underneath. And Tyler's saying, stay down, stay down. And this guy's like, no, I can do it, I can do it. He goes up, and the tornado gets him. It sweeps him away.
Yeah. Turns him into a sail.
Right. And that makes total sense that once the air can get underneath you, it can lift you up, and it's not as easy if you're all the way on the ground. That's just not something I would have ever thought of because I've never been in that moment.
Right.
Usually when there's a tornado near me, I'm in a basement or a swimming bathtub or something.
Yeah.
I mean, they're super powerful things.
Yeah.
And I think that it's hard to appreciate until, you personally see the kind of devastation they can do. But an interesting factoid from the first movie stars Bill Paxton, who passed away about 10 years ago or so.
Yeah.
So this movie, I found out his son makes a little cameo appearance in it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, his son is one of the guys who, at the beginning of the scene where the tornado comes and they have to go to the swimming pool, his son is one of the guys who says, it's not coming, and then he runs and jumps in the truck and it gets,
Oh, man.
That's his son.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, so I thought, that's interesting.
That's cool. Yeah. Along the lines of, people from the original film, most people wouldn't know this, but the special effects guy who did all the 1996 film ones, Ben Snow, he did all of the VFX for this one as well.
That makes sense because it looks so similar. I mean, it had the same film and everything.
Like I'm looking at the movie poster, the font, it looks like the other movie, which of course makes sense because it's the same franchise, I guess.
Right.
But there are a lot of moments throughout the movie where if you've seen the first one, you're like, oh yeah, this is familiar, Obviously, the landscape looks the same because it's both Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And I had another thought, but I lost it.
Well, I just think it's great that they are paying authentic tribute to the original one. It's not a knockoff, and it's not a remake. It's a tribute.
Yeah.
But it's also its own thing.
Yeah.
And you can totally see this without seeing the first one.
Oh, yeah. It's a standalone film.
Yeah.
This is the second kind of film we've seen recently where I was looking for is there going to have any kind of messaging and, woke messaging or anything like that?
Yeah.
I didn't really detect any. I mean, there was hints of when you talk about a storm movie like this, what you're imagining they're going to blame all this stuff on is climate change or something.
And they poo-poo climate change.
But that was basically absent. It was just like
they don't say those words once. They don't say
No.
climate change. They don't say global warming, any of it.
No, they don't try to make any explanation for why it's a really bad storm season. They do reference the fact that it's a really bad storm season.
And they say it's getting worse.
Yeah.
But they don't say because of global warming, which I appreciated.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's true that tornadoes are getting worse. Probably, if anything, we're reporting them more, so we see more evidence of them. But I don't think there's anyone saying that tornadoes are getting worse than they used to be.
I think one of the things in regards to that is as the population of the country's grown, and so there's more when tornadoes
there's more
go through,
targets.
More impact,
more targets,
to humanity.
The destruction tends to be greater because of that, because there's more things for it to destroy.
Yep.
Makes sense.
What's the difference between a Tennessee divorce and a Texas tornado?
What?
Nothing. Someone's losing a trailer either way.
Oh god. Yeah. Laugh track.
Hey man, but that story that made you laugh, right?
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I had to get that in there.
The only thing that I saw, I don't know if you would call this messaging or not, but it's product placement. We talked about the Dodge Ram product placement.
Right. Yeah. This is a great Dodge commercial.
It is a great Dodge commercial, and I thought it was cool also that the Dodge TRX was in there, along with I think I mentioned that earlier. But anyway, the other product that I noticed was a beer, and the first instance you see it, and I believe it's Tyler, is drinking a Budweiser.
I'd like a Budweiser, please.
How dare you?
It's not a Bud Light. In the next instance, there is a woman at the rodeo drinking a Busch Light. And then the very final instance, Kate's mother is drinking a Bud Light. But I thought it was hilarious the way that they did this. She has this Bud Light long neck, and the logo is turned just far enough away that you can just kind of see the blue, but it's not like Bud Light, drink this. But it was kind of like, okay, we're going to kind of just gingerly be like, Bud Light, please.
Right.
But the others were like, yeah, drink Budweiser and Busch Light and all that stuff. And
right.
I don't know.
So, of course, that's in reference to the big Bud Light boycott after the controversy with, I can't even remember his name.
It was Dylan Mulvaney.
Dylan Mulvaney. They certainly have learned their lesson about who they should be marketing their products to. And it's not the Dylan Mulvaneys of the world. It's the Tylers of the world and stuff. You know, maybe we would have liked an apology from them, but we'll take what we can get, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense that they would put their stuff in this movie because that's the target.
Yeah.
It's regular Joe American.
Yeah.
And that's what this movie's for, is regular Joe American. And I really love that.
I do too.
It's not heady, there's room for all that. It's just a fun movie that really is the spirit of American adventure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. Just kind of to round out our discussion here, there was another thing you noticed, Thomas, and I thought it was interesting. So obviously, in a movie like this, you have to have a romantic subplot. It's essential. There's a little bit of a love triangle between Kate, the main character, and Javi, who clearly likes her, and then she kind of likes Tyler.
Yeah.
And so you get that throughout the whole movie, but then you notice something at the end that maybe should have been there, but wasn't.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting there. So, when the story is resolved and everything works out and, the characters are going back to their life, but of course they've been
So she's going back to New York.
Yeah, this adventure together. And they're at the airport where she's going to fly away. And then, in that classic scene where he runs up to her and everything, you think they're going to kiss.
Yeah.
And they don't.
Then they don't.
They see a tornado is coming, so the flight's delayed.
And they hear over the PA system, flight's delayed, and so then they turn and run out. That was interesting. I thought they're clear the clear romantic interest in this movie. I don't understand. Well, it was just interesting that they didn't actually have it consummate in a kiss like they often do in so many Hollywood movies.
On the romantic interest thing. And I'm not making fun of this at all, but it was kind of funny how it was almost Hallmark movie-esque.
Yeah.
Kate's hanging out with Javi, who's the solid guy working for the corporation. And he's got a plan and he's doing the big work and stuff. And
he's the person she's known for a long time.
Right, exactly. And then he basically gets dumped / friend zoned for this cowboy without a plan, essentially. I mean, not literally that, but it was kind of hilarious.
Right,
You know,
right.
he was in the friend zone the whole time, though.
Yeah.
that's
Fair
true.
enough. Fair enough.
I don't think that it wasn't. It was interesting in that sense where even she clearly was taken with Tyler
Yeah, from the get-go.
from the get go. But yeah, Javi never had a chance, dude. He was.
Poor Javi.
He was.
He's the scientist working for the corporation that's going and buying out the busted up houses, which that's an interesting moral dilemma. Is like, is this guy actually helping these people or taking advantage of them? And it could literally be either way.
Yeah, that's something they get at in the movie is Javi's whole team is providing all this data they're gathering from the storms to this land developer, I guess, who sweeps in. It's like, hey, your house has been destroyed. I'll pay you good cash for that land. And yeah, I guess sometimes that might genuinely be helpful. Other times it's taken advantage. And so that's kind of the moral dilemma in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, is he giving them a fair price?
Right. That's never quite explained.
No.
The implication is he's not.
No, he's taking advantage of their destroyed lives.
Right. But there's not much moralizing about it. It's just to give you kind of a antagonist for the movie, being him and his team. That's the other thing is Javi's second in command in the movie who at the end of the movie tells Javi, you got to stop and chase the tornado instead of going to town and trying to help, which we'll leave that efficacy of going to help ahead of a tornado aside.
I know that was ridiculous.
But of course, Javi makes the good guy decision of kicking the other guy out of the truck and going to help because that's what you have to do in the movie, whether or not it makes sense.
Yeah.
Just an interesting note, that second in command guy, he's going to be the next Superman.
Yeah, I could tell.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
had that look.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Look forward to that.
If it's any good.
I hope it is.
It's supposed to be. Or, I mean, I'm hoping it is. I guess it comes out next year. We don't know much yet.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up. So first, the most important question. Twisters 2024, is it woke?
No.
No, Andrew says.
No, I don't think it is.
No, Thomas says. And no, Sterling says. It's a no from all of us. It is not a woke movie. You're good to go see this one. All right. And then the final question. Andrew, out of 10 stars, what do you rate this?
I'd give it an 8. I really liked it for what it is.
Right. Yeah.
I'd give it a 7. It's fun. It's at the same level as the original. Almost exactly. I don't think one is inferior to the other.
Yeah, I'd say they're pretty level.
They're pretty much,
Which that's hard to do.
Right. It is
Especially
hard
with a cult classic.
It is hard to do. I guess for me, sort of the nostalgia factor. I saw this, years ago when it originally came out.
28 years ago.
And
Thomas.
it was fun then, but it wasn't like, oh, this is the best movie ever.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same way I feel about this one. It's fun.
I'm gonna rate it a little bit higher, and I'll explain. I'm gonna give it a 8.5 to 9. I realize that's pretty high. I think it's a pretty good movie, but especially in the climate we're in today, where there's so much pressure to preach or moralize or to do all this, Netflixification of America kind of stuff. They don't really do much of that. There's hints here and there, but it's just a good old-fashioned popcorn flick American movie. And because they had the courage to actually just do that and not engage in the other stuff, I'm going to rank it a little bit higher.
I'm going to push back on you on that just now quickly.
Okay.
I think that the climate has changed, and I think they're realizing to be safe, do a movie that doesn't try to get into any moralizing at all or very little.
Yeah.
Just white bread stuff. And because we want to just kind of meet the broadest audience interests as possible. And so that, to me, this is what like I said earlier, I think this is like the second movie I've kind of felt like they've tried to avoid stepping on any cultural landmines.
Mm-hmm. What's the other one you're thinking of?
I can't remember. It was one that we did. I know it wasn't Civil War, but it was the Kevin Costner film.
Horizon.
Oh, Horizon.
Yeah.
That's for Horizon. I don't find that as surprising.
No, but
because it's Kevin Costner's baby pretty much. Speaking of, the sequel to that one got delayed. We said we were going to go see it in August, but we're not going to be able to.
Yeah.
I agree the climate is changing.
Yeah.
I still think this is one of the first movies to really engage in that. Let's not moralize. Let's not preach. The first kind of mainstream movies.
Out of Hollywood.
So
I'll
think
give you that. I just think
bump.
that I'm starting to see this trend now. It wouldn't surprise me if we see more of this. Most of the just on this side, and I'm sorry I'm taking this a little long. The previews you mentioned, there were a lot of horror movie previews and stuff, and I'm thinking they're preparing for well ahead of Halloween, basically.
See, I thought it might be because they were mistaking a thriller like Twisters for horror.
I think
thinking those audiences are the same. Maybe I don't think they're the same audiences, but
maybe it's more that there were some other movies that definitely weren't horror, like Wicked,
right? Or the new Transformers animated movie.
Yeah. I wasn't interested in seeing any of them except Trap. For whatever reason, that actually looks fascinating, and I would say we should probably do that one.
I rarely have not enjoyed an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Yeah.
I guess that's not quite true. I think the last one I really watched was Lady in the Water, which was just terrible.
That was
but
weak.
Signs was great. Signs was great. So I'd be willing to go
The
see
Village
Trap.
is my favorite.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. The first time. The second time it's kind of ruined, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we all like this movie. We definitely say it's safe to go see with the family. You know, if you have very little kids, maybe not. But other than that, you're good to go. We like this movie. We hope to see more like this. And I think Thomas is right. We might genuinely see a trend in this direction.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
Yeah. All right. This has been the Pop Culture Contrarian podcast with Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew. We are brought to you by the Patriot Post, which is the oldest conservative news digest on the web. It's right and it's free. Be sure to like and subscribe both to the Patriot Post and to us, the Pop Culture Contrarian. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.